The desert of Sharm el Sheikh has seen many treaties and broken promises, and once again, the world's spotlight has returned to Egypt, the land that calls itself the cradle of peace. Convoys of world leaders sneak through its sun bleached roads, flags flutter, cameras flush. The official tagline says, building a lasting peace for Gaza. But beneath the banners, the question whispers, how do you build peace when two men who can decide it aren't even in the room? For a rare moment, the guns around Gaza have fallen silent. 2 years of horror since the 2023 Hamas attacks. Hundreds of hostages taken, and the war that followed all have led to this uneasy pause. Egypt has conveyed the Gaza Peace Summit to convert that pause into permanence. Nearly 24 nations have shown up, presidents, kings, foreign ministers, all hoping to script a future headline that reads, Peace returns to the Middle East. And at the center of all the cameras stands Donald Trump. Yes, Trump is back in the Middle East, this time calling himself the man who brought everyone to the table. For his supporters, it's a diplomatic comeback. For his critics, another show. But either way, he's here, shaking hands, giving statements, claiming that this ceasefire is the result of his relentless negotiation. The real news, however, lies in who isn't there, because two invitations that mattered more than all others were politely declined. First, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. India received a formal invitation. Trump himself posed for Modi's presence, knowing that today, outside of himself, Modi is arguably the most recognizable elected leader on the planet. From Washington to Warsaw, people know his face, and yet New Delhi said no. Instead of the Prime Minister or even the External Affairs Minister, India has sent Minister of State Kirti Vardhan Singh, a capable man but far from and down the hierarchy. For a summit where presidents and prime ministers are landing in military jets, India's decision sends a subtle but unmistakable message. We are watching, but we are not playing your script. Why? To understand that, we have to step back and look at what this summit actually represents. On paper, it's about peace. In reality, it's about control. Control over what Gaza becomes, who patrols it, who funds it, reconstruction, which flag claims victory. Israel's war began with one demand: bring our people home. Those hostages held for 2 years by Hamas have now been released, the living ones at least. Dozens never survived captivity, and yet their return has electrified Israeli politics. For Donald Trump, it's proof that his foreign policy instincts still work. For Benjamin Netanyahu, it's a bittersweet moment, the closing of one wound and the opening of another. Because after the hostages comes the harder question. Now what? Does Israel withdraw? Who secures Gaza? What happens the day after peace is declared? Trump's motorcade reaches Tel Aviv. Cameras follow him to the Knesset. Netanyahu greets him like an old ally. Trump declares, no American president has ever done more for Israel. The applause is thunderous, and Netanyahu, smiling, promises Israelis highest civilian honor, the Israeli prize. To Trump, the optics are dazzling. But listen closely, not a single word about long-term peace, not one mention of restraint or rebuilding, just gratitude, power, and performance. The next day, the world expects Netanyahu to fly to Egypt for peace summit. He doesn't. Officially, he's occupied with urgent domestic matters. Unofficially, it's a boycott wrapped in diplomacy. Because why sit in a hall negotiating a fragile truce when he believes the war has already served its purpose? And that's where Modi's calculations begins to make sense. Attending a summit that Israel's own prime minister refuses to legitimize would have been theater, not strategy. Modi has mastered the art of calibrated absence, being seen without surrendering. He knows India's rise depends on staying equidistant, friendly with Israel, respected in Arab world, and indispensable to Washington. Standing on one side stage could tilt that balance. So he stays out, letting a junior minister fill the chair, visible enough to register India's presence, distant enough to avoid the trap. Back home, opposition figures like Shashi Tharoor calls it a mistake. They argue India should have been represented by its foreign minister or even the prime minister himself. That missing such a global forum is a diplomatic own goal. But diplomacy isn't cricket. You don't win by simply showing up on the field. Sometimes you win by staying off it until the rules favor you. Meanwhile, Egypt is doing what Egypt does best, playing host, balancing between rivals, and trying to claim credit as the region's peacemaker. Sharm el Sheikh has been dressed like a stage set. Enormous billboards reading, "Welcome to the land of peace." Corridors lined with flags, security tighter than ever. Cameras zoom in on arriving leaders. Trump from the US, European premiers, Pakistan's Shehbaz Sharif. The media headlines scream world leaders gather in Egypt for Gaza peace talks. But behind the glamour, insiders whisper a harsher truth. Without Netanyahu, without Iran, without the full endorsement of the region's biggest powers, the summit is mostly optics. Iran too was invited and declined. Tehran's foreign minister said politely, "The conditions are not conducive." Translation: we are not legitimizing a summit framed by Trump and Egypt. That single sentence tells you why peace in the Middle East is so elusive. Every player attends only if the seating chart flatters them. And yet, for the ordinary people of Gaza and southern Israel, this moment matters. 2 years of bombardment, blockades, funerals have broken the entire communities. Children born in 2023 have known nothing but war. Now at least 8 trucks cross into Gaza again. Families step cautiously out of shelters. Markets reopen, but everyone knows the silence is temporary, like the hush before the next storm. If we have learned anything from the last 75 years of Middle Eastern politics, it's this: peace conferences don't end wars, they pause them. From Camp David to Oslo and Apollos, every historic handshake came with a countdown timer attached. And when that timer expired, the same conflict returned, reshaped, renamed, but never resolved. The Gaza Peace Summit risks being the next entry on that list. Let's look at the underlying power game. Trump needs a global success story. Israel needs time to rebuild domestic confidence. Egypt needs relevance. Europe wants moral visibility without military risk. And India needs neutrality that looks like leadership. By declining the invite at the top level, Modi signals that India is no one's proxy. New Delhi will engage on its own terms through trade, energy, intelligence cooperation, but won't march to Washington or Tel Aviv's drumbeat. It's subtle diplomacy, it's classic Indian realism.